Welcome to the bottom of the barrel. To all you grubby groupers and floundering fans, to another edition of the Bottom Feeders podcast, the first podcast dedicated to the last. Sit back and enjoy the blast of the rush of watching our team shrivel in the clutch or not showing up in games that mean so much. Here at the bottom, we talk about it all, every decision that led us to our downfall. Welcome to the Bottom Feeders podcast.
And welcome everyone to episode 2 of the Bottom Feeders podcast. I'm Carson, joined by Malcolm. Malcolm, how you doing today?
I'm doing all right. How y'all doing? How y'all doing? What another wonderful week in the NFL.
It has been quite the week in the NFL, both from a fantasy aspect, a trade deadline aspect. We'll get into all that later. Um, but
Yes,
yeah,
we
like I
will.
said, my name is Carson. I'm joined alongside Malcolm. And what this podcast is, this is a podcast dedicated to the last. We are notoriously bad at fantasy football. We've been in the same fantasy league for about 15, 14 years now.
Yikes.
Since we've been recording stats, our average finish is 10th place since 2018, and we have zero top three finishes between the two of us.
Which I must say, really quickly, we've been over those stats before, those numbers. It's since we've been recording stats. That doesn't really do me any favors. Given the first 5 years of the league, I performed exceptionally well, and I was at least a 500 team every year. And then that's really when the dip started happening in that next 10 years. But, to its credit, that's 10 years of data still. So
Right.
can't
It's also
discredit it too much.
it's also in those first 5 years is when you got the only championship either of us have ever gotten.
Exactly. So
Um, but yeah,
quick ascent.
we also not just fantasy failures, we are real life failures too with our NFL's team. Uh,
Yes. Shout out to
I-
the Raiders.
Malcolm's a diehard Raiders fan. I am a
Let's
diehard
go.
Jets fan. So what we're gonna do on this podcast every week is kind of talk about our collective failures in fantasy and reality. Um, and yeah, so we're gonna get it moving. We are members of the WLM Fantasy Football League. Malcolm, what does that stand for?
We like men.
We do like men,
It's a men's
and
league. Got to build community somehow.
hey, we all look out for each other, right?
After
Um,
15 years, that's what men do. We survive together, you know, check on each other. Hey, are you dead? Are you dead? Oh, you're not. You fixed your lineup. Okay.
I know we've had a lot of recent failures in this fantasy league, but this year you're actually not off to a bad start. Tell us about your team and tell us about some of the recent comings and goings.
This is actually reminiscent of those beginning years in the league where I feel as though we got off to a good start. We have definitely come to a middling point in the season, where we have some decisions to be made as far as lineup, but at least roster decisions that don't necessarily have to be made. We made some very aggressive moves earlier in the season, acquiring some receiver one type players who have high upside, I would say, and definitely made some maybe regrettable moves at the running back position. To kind of address some needs that we had there, and losing some receiver one talent also to get to do that to do so. So it's definitely been interesting. We're above 500 now this week, and I just think overall it's going to be an interesting season. It's been a rough ride. It's been very much so a bottom feeders experience, where we're riding the roller coaster of not really understanding what's going on. Because while I was winning, I had the strange feeling that we were going to be losing shortly after that. And now we started losing and we're kind of middling out. So
So when
kind of
when you
like that
say
explanation.
yeah, I get that. When you say you acquired receiver one talent, are you
Wow.
referring to Keon Coleman as this receiver one in question?
No, definitely not. I would say the acquisition of Justin Jefferson was was definitely what I was referring to. Maybe even Waddle was, which I'm more suspect of, but Keon Coleman was the aforementioned blunder that I was referring to when I acquired Pacheco and Coleman in that trade, and also dealt a doomsday in that same day. But you know what? The iron was hot. I was making a lot of deals, and just like Jerry Jones, you guys don't know what I have planned before the deadline. You know what I mean? Like there could be something else coming up. You guys don't know. I got some picks. I acquired some. Look at my tight end. I have the best tight end position in the league. Everybody
Uh,
else is over here calling me every week. You never know.
Hey, I believe my Harold Fannin Jr., Darren Waller combo. We'll have some few words about that. But you mentioned that some of your nightmares included that Keon Coleman acquisition.
Oh,
Um, Before we get into that, though, I want to kind of cover some of our fantasy fumbles of the week, right? I think week in and
quite a
week
few.
out, year in, year out, we find a way to mess everything up. We find a way to fumble the bag, as the youngins say nowadays.
Just trying to be
Uh,
relatable, you know?
you had a pretty good week, Malcolm. Well, you want to tell us about it, but tell us about how you
Mhm.
fumbled maybe this week, and I'm going to see if I can pull up that data for the viewers, is hopefully our first ever video podcast. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you should see some cool stuff momentarily. But Malcolm, take it
Well,
away.
this week I made some great decisions. Following our last week's episode, I was very skeptical of the Dolphins offense, so I decided to start Geno, which number one was a great decision. All right. This week also happened to be a return of Brock Bowers, which definitely boosted my lineup a lot. And then I also perhaps made some blunders in my decision to pick a couple folks in the flex position. And this is also what I was referring to as far as being able to strengthen my roster. Week to week, I'm never really sure what to do with Keenan Allen. I'm never really sure what to do with Waddle. I know Warren and sometimes Genty are definitely going to be my running back one and running back two, which leaves a hole in my flex position. And I probably could have started Dalton Schultz this week, but I wasn't really sure about the Texans offense. I did start him the previous week, and the Texans had a very bad game, and now Stroud is out, so we'll see what's going on with that situation. So as far as restoring trust in my ability to start him, because I don't know, I think that overall this team is going to have to come to some hard decisions in the coming weeks because
I know you.
I don't know if we can sustain this. Keenan Allen is 33, like we were talking about in the pre-production meeting, and I think both of us are coming to the same realization. Like, hey man, I don't know if this is gonna happen. And Aaron Jones is becoming a problem. Man, I was so happy to see him doing okay this week,
I mean, yeah, he
and
was
then
doing
he was gone,
okay, and then he got hurt
just like that.
immediately. His first game
Mm,
back.
disappeared from
It's
the lineup. It was tough. Like kind of like Jaden Daniels though. So I imagine there are a lot of fantasy owners this week who are kind of feeling that lament and felt a little bit of pain.
Yep. So I know you mentioned could have started Dalton Schultz. That decision not to start Dalton Schultz instead of Keenan Allen did cost you, I believe, $15.
Yeah.
As you can see here for the viewers, he lost that weekly high point payout to the CTE machines by just a point. While you're looking at these box scores, you should be able to find my team. It's not 93, not 90, but even lower than that. Finished with 89 points. And look, fumble of the week, you could have your pick with mine. I started Evan Ingram, and
Been there before.
he scored zero. I was doing some math earlier. I had four players,
Zero.
right? Evan Ingram,
Mm.
Bill, Tyler Loop, and the Raiders defense. They all combined
Ooh.
for less than 10 points. Uh, that's that's a real damper. But for me, I think my fantasy fumble of the week, once again, is starting Bill.
Kill
Uh,
Bill.
I have this blind faith in Mr. Krosky Merit, and it is royally screwing me up the ass.
Yeah.
I did some numbers, right? I did some more numbers. I know we could have kind of talked about what happens when I start Bill and what happens when I bench him. This season, we're now up to
Where we at?
six starts, three benches. Take a guess at the average point total when I bench him.
Let's go 12. 12 and a half. Whoa.
15.6.
That's starter level.
That's
At the
like
very
good
least, very
starter
productive
level.
bench.
In a half point PPR league, over 15 and a half points. That's awesome.
That's pretty good.
Guess the average when I put him in my lineup.
4.2.
4.56. Not far off.
I know bad
Um,
fantasy.
dude, it's a whole 11 points of value, the difference between when I bench him and when I start him. I just can't
I
get it right every single
I
week.
will say again, this is reminiscent of Travis Benjamin. Every time we talk about a receiver that has this capability of production on a team that I'm really unsure of, it just reminds me, and maybe that is trauma. I'll never forget that 48 point performance on my bench. But I think that it's hard to really tell what's going to happen with that Washington team, especially because Marcus Mariota is Marcus Mariota. Who knows? He could be productive. Jahan Dotson was a fantasy killer for years in that same kind of role that course being there it is. So I don't know. Who knows anything that's going to happen in that backfield or that team? Seemingly, it's hard to project what's going to happen in the NFC East year to year. Uh, People lose their jobs every year in that division. Also,
Yeah.
and Evan Ingram is a tough case. We were talking about Kyle Pitts in previous episodes, and I think both of them are tight ends who have had very similar fantasy production, or at least outlook on a year to year basis, which where they could be great for you. Or and also most of the time they're probably not going to get the ball or any touches. Evan Ingram had some great blocks in that game, though.
Yep. And that kind of brings us into our dreams and nightmares segment. This is going to be a weekly segment we do where we kind of, it's a deep league, right? We're bad at fantasy football. We would kind of want to see how many of our bad decisions we think are good in the moment. We want to track them in the moment when we make them, right?
Only
Um,
one to get better.
Maybe we can make this into a learning experience for us. Who
Right,
knows?
full
Um,
circle.
so Malcolm, your dream last week was to start Geno Smith or Tua during Jalen Hurts' bye. How did that turn out for you?
I specifically asked for 12 plus points. I received 20. It was awesome. It was great,
It's
and a lot
yeah,
of that was Brock Bowers. So I'm not too excited, but beggars can't be choosers. I'm grateful. Truly.
yeah. Honestly, I honestly thought you were making the mistake because I know you were torn between Tua and Geno. Whichever one was going to be your dream, that was a debate, and you started Geno. In the back of my head, I was like, yeah,
Mm.
I would have picked Tua, but there you go.
The Dolphins' offense is still sketchy, and that would because and ultimately that's what it came back to. My nightmare was the Dolphins' offense in general. You pick a player, I probably owned a piece of it, and I can't trust any of it. So
Yeah, no, my dream last week kind of followed suit. Went with the Raiders defense during bye weeks. It was a nightmare on the waiver wire. And sure, my whole team played bad, but my dream was definitely a nightmare. Uh, Raiders defense against Jacksonville started off really well, got a pick in the red zone. We were at like 12 fantasy points at halftime.
I was right there with you. I was
Ended,
texting you during the game,
yeah, we ended with one fantasy point contributed from the Raiders defense.
and that wasn't the most egregious thing they did that day.
Yeah. That one fantasy point was still more than my starting tight end, but man, that certainly turned into a nightmare. We'll see if we can you can keep it going this week and I can maybe right in the tide. What's your fantasy dream for the week?
Okay, it's going to follow suit in a previous dream I had, or previous nightmare rather. The first nightmare we had, I believe, on the first episode, it talked about Xavier Leggett, and I think Xavier Leggett could be my dream this week. Okay, I have previously not had faith in him, and he became a
Wow.
nightmare. And I think that the Panthers have a good matchup this week with facing New Orleans. I don't know how that divisional game is going to play out, but if I'm willing to bet on a position, it's a flex spot that I'm debating, but placing him into this week, the bottom of my roster. I got to take a chance on him. So my dream is that he has a productive week, maybe a couple catches and a touchdown, and I'll be happy with that. Sounds good to me.
I
You know,
suppose looking at your roster now, you kind of got slim pickings for that flex spot. With if Aaron Jones is hurt and out,
it's tough. Aaron Jones coming back was really going to be something that set me forward, and I made a lot of those moves in the beginning of the season, thinking that I was going to have Aaron Jones. Not having him is proving to be one of my biggest fears because I was definitely worried about that when I dealt Odumze because I wasn't even considering dealing Odumze when I first received offers for him,
yeah, and
scoring
you
30
got
points a
Pacheco,
week.
and you got Pacheco on IR too. So your flex is
Yeah,
just burning.
I tried to plan ahead. I did.
Me. So, all right. So we're gonna track Xavier Leggett, a very bold dream of the week.
He's rostered in a lot of different leagues. I was also looking at a lot of the waiver wire options in our league, and you know how it is. It's slim. It's a 12 team league. There's not many options on the pickup, and not many options that I trust, I should say. From a point-to-point standpoint, there are definitely some viable options, but who knows how that's going to work out? And I'd rather trust the devil, you know.
He is rostered in 25% of leagues, which is way higher than I would have guessed, given his output this year.
I wonder what the average roster percentage is for free agents in our league, but it has to be
Uh,
like around 4 to 10%,
well,
you know,
well, if you
if
are
not
curious,
lower.
Leggett is only started in 2.5% of leagues, and you are one of
And
that this week.
I'm a dreamer. That's that 2.5%, baby. Shout out to y'all.
For me, I'm gonna have a very, very far out there fantasy dream of the week.
Where are we going? Take me on a journey.
It's been one that has been a nightmare for much of the season, but I have a feeling that against my team, he's gonna find a way to bounce back. Because if you ever want to, if you're an offensive skill player, right, and you're in a slump, what more could you ask for than a matchup against the Jets?
Hmm, this might be it.
Um, so I'm gonna go with Jerry Jeudy.
Ooh,
And I
that's a good
know
one.
it's kind of crazy. He's averaging less than 5 points this year. Um, he's struggled mightily, but Dylan Gabriel hasn't really gotten a chance to fling the rock. The Jets just gave up their two best defensive players. They're going to be
No pass rush.
no pass rush, no
No Robert
corners.
Saleh.
I don't even know who the number one corner is going to be. Is it Brandon Stevens? Like he's
We saw that in our group chat this
yeah,
week, and I was
like
like, typical Jets fans complaining about a player I don't even know exists. But you know what? I'm sure Brandon Stevens is gonna be Brandon Stevens for you guys this week. He's gonna be himself. I have no doubt.
but the crazy thing is I'm going to be starting Harold Jr. as well. So I'll be starting two Browns pass catchers, but Jerry Judy's the one that I don't think I've started him in like 6 weeks.
Now, as your friend, I do have to point out you deciding to start a Browns pass catcher specifically at the tight end position. You know, this is a running theme here. You know, it doesn't matter who
Hey,
that is. It just happens to usually be a guy named Njoku.
it usually is, and I'd like to represent my fellow Kane alum, David Njoku, but
Yeah.
it's clear Harold Fannon's taken over that tight end spot. Njoku was almost traded at the deadline, but we can get into all that stuff later. If you guys have any fantasy dreams of your own that you want us to kind of dissect and analyze here on the Bottom Feeders, you can email us at bottomfeederspod@gmail.com. Again, that is bottomfeederspod@gmail.com. Exactly how it's spelled. Send us your fumbles, send us your dreams, and we'll probably make fun of you while also making fun of ourselves in the process.
It's probably gonna hurt me more than it's gonna hurt you.
But all right, we are going to take a quick break at that point. When we get back from this break, we're gonna go over some of the reality of the NFL outside of our own fantasy failures, some real
Let's live
life
in real
failures.
life.
It's nice now and then.
Yeah.
All right, catch us after this break. And we are back with
Back.
the Bottom Feeders podcast. Back from the break. Dealt with a lot of our fantasy failures. But we have our own fantasy fumbles week in, week out, right?
We do.
They're not real. They don't really
No,
matter,
there's not money at stake. Well, I guess there is, but not millions of dollars. Perhaps not even part of a $1 billion entity.
right? And I think it's cool that we can always hang our hat on, no matter what kind of mistakes we make, whether it's starting Bill or or benching Dalton Schultz. We're not making mistakes as bad as some of these real NFL coaches out there. Um, so Malcolm, why don't you walk us through what was your biggest NFL coaching fumble of the week?
Well, I'm gonna take you to the north, where there are kings, but this was not a decision a king would have made, because the king would have thought for perhaps a kingdom in this particular analogy, right? Um, and in kingdoms, there are many people, right, who serve a lot of different roles. And when you are serving a role that is perhaps not of the highest rung, you sometimes make decisions for the highest rung that you think that they would like, right? So if you're Matt LaFleur and you're thinking, man, what would a top tier coach do? What would somebody who wants to be at the top of this division do? What would Dan Campbell do? you make certain decisions and be aggressive in games when I think you should beat certain opponents. You understand your team's plays down to the level of the opponent every week. Seemingly, the Packers struggle with that. That's okay. How do you motivate your team to come out there and get a win in a game that should matter to you and before the games that matter? Obviously, the Packers usually go on a streak in December and November. They play well in this next upcoming portion of the season, but right now is the time, and they might lose their opportunity to have a meaningful run at the end of the season if they don't get their stuff together. So Matt LaFleur is my fumble of the week. I'm not even sure which decision was the one in that game against the Panthers. There are a couple that I was like, man, I really think that going for it in the fourth quarter, giving the ball to Jacobs at any point in time is not a bad decision. But there were a couple times when he chose to stay with running the ball when obviously they could have had a little bit more success with the passing options. And the Packers in
True.
general are a team that I think struggles on offense because they don't really know what to do with all the weapons they have. They have a wealth of options, but they seemingly every week never know where they're gonna get the playmaking from. As a
That's true.
previous owner of Romeo Dobbs in fantasy, I can say on a real reality standpoint, has to be hard as a Packers fan, even as a coaching staff for Matt LaFleur, as an offensive head coach, to understand what you're going to do from a play calling standpoint every week when you don't know which one of your playmakers are going to show up. So I
Well,
understand the disposition,
I mean,
but
I understand it. Like, yeah, losing to the Panthers is a tough look, especially when you were, I think, before the week, the favorite to win the entire conference. But give him credit, they did lose Tucker Kraft, right? They did. He was probably their leading receiver, I think, up to that point. Like, essentially, he was their receiver one, tore his ACL in what, the third quarter. And yes, you still only scored 13 points against the Panthers. That's bad. I'll give you that. They turned it over a lot, I think, but that's a little harsh, man. I mean, Carolina's a half game out of the playoffs.
they're not bad. But they're also a half game out of the playoffs in the NFC South.
Yeah, that is true.
And
That
that
is.
division typically, like even if the team is 8-8 and they make the playoffs, like the Bucks in years previous, to this, they're not a bad team. That's not an indictment on them. But when they do beat some opponents, that is a sub 500 team that they just beat. Again, you're gifting a win that's going to be very beneficial to them. For
I
you, that's
no.
going to be very much so to your detriment. So. I know it's
I
harsh, but hopefully that inspires them to maybe perhaps make a different decision. I think that there's nobody louder than Green Bay fans. They're a very passionate fan base, and you're definitely hearing it from them, rightly so, right now. And maybe Detroit too.
I would say
So
when you told me you were going up north, I thought you were going to Detroit. They had a rough weekend too, uh, losing to the JJ McCarthy led Vikings.
so I don't even feel I was gonna segue a little bit of hopefully before yours too into I don't know what's going on in these divisional games and these divisional matchups, but it's leading some of these coaches to make some very dumb decisions.
Yep.
Yeah, I have no
Well,
idea what it
mine
is.
mine unfortunately is not a divisional matchup from what happened, but it is a
Uh-oh.
team that also lost to the Panthers earlier this year.
Ooh.
I'm going with the former New York Jets offensive coordinator, the prince of the classic run, pass, punt strategy. Dallas Cowboys head coach Brian Schottenheimer.
Ah, yes.
That game against the Cardinals Monday night. I hope everyone was able to watch it with all
Oh,
the ESPN, YouTube TV stuff going on. But
I hope you weren't. That was if there was ever a game to miss.
Dallas looked bad, and
Not
there are
good.
some stats that I think are really damning. Is they went for it on fourth down three times throughout the game. I think two of them in the first half. And they converted zero of them.
Who does that sound like? Except for the no conversions.
Well, it sounds like the Jets a lot.
The Jets, for sure. I was thinking of Dan Campbell with the aggressiveness on fourth
Okay.
down. And I think Brandon Staley started that trend a couple years ago. But overall, I think a lot of these coaches model some of their behaviors off of their coaches, and maybe they need to learn from their predecessors. And Schottenheimer being a first year head coach, I don't think that's a great idea, modeling your behaviors off of them.
No, and it was I think at one point they went for it on fourth down when they were down by 17, right? And they could have kicked a field goal. And it's kind of like you do the math. What do you gain from going for it on fourth down when you have the best kicker in football, right? You know he's going to make the field
Right.
goal.
That's what I was gonna say.
Brandon Aubrey might be the new GOAT of our generation after Tucker kind of ruined that.
I was gonna say I am now. I didn't know this is something I had to be tentatively cautious of or anything else regarding that. But I'm not gonna anoint any more kickers as the greatest of our time. We'll give that some time, just like the kickers previous to them. We'll
Yep.
wait 50 years for any recognition. If they
That's why
last
I'm
that long, then we'll go ahead and give them some credit.
like
Shout out to
like the
Sebastian Janikowski.
Seabass represent. Man, he was a legend. But was he picked in the first round or the second round?
It's baller. It's
Yeah,
baller.
insane.
First round pick. Good
First
kicker.
round pick, crazy.
That's what we do. Al Davis, baby.
But no, the Cowboys won for it. They had the best kicker, and I feel like the only time they attempted a field goal was a 68 yarder before half, which like, yes, sure, Cam Little just did it against you guys.
Why you gotta bring that up? That did happen this week, though.
But
That
like
did.
the Cowboy, like going for it on fourth down, down by 17, you're gonna need three scores anyway, right? One of those scores is gonna need to be a field goal anyway if you want to tie the game or win it. Why go for it on fourth down after you failed twice already, get no points, and now you're still down three scores? You could have just kicked
Devil's
it.
advocate.
Okay.
The Cowboys have a very potent offense. I think about it similar to how the Mets view their lineup. You're probably going to get a home run more likely than you're going to get a single.
Yeah, but
And
the
yes, you have a very consistent kicker, but when you have Pickens and you have CD, I
yeah,
don't
but
know. Take
that
a
that
chance.
that potent offense only scored 10 points against the Arizona freaking Cardinals.
I'm not saying they made the right decision. But I think that could have been what he was thinking if you're Schottenheimer. You
And
might
like
score a touchdown here.
yeah, I mean they did almost outgain the Cardinals. I think they did. I was looking at it earlier. I think they even outgained the Cardinals yardage wise that game. The points. They just couldn't score because they were choosing not to score. And it's like just get some points on the board.
I
Jacoby
don't know if that's a
Brissett.
good position to be in here in the NFL when you're choosing not to score.
Yeah,
What did,
right.
what
It's
did
just
Brissett do?
I mean Brissett, I mean sure he looked good, but like you are playing Jacoby Brissett. You don't need to score a lot of points to win. Like
It's not the Pastronaut.
just get the points on the board when you can, especially against a team lesser than you. I don't know. That's my take. Brian Schottenheimer, my coaching fumble of the week.
Playing down to your competition. I think that's what we both learned
Yeah.
this week. If you're an NFL head coach, motivate that
Well,
locker room.
I brought it up earlier. We're gonna go into our final segment here, which is really gonna be the. There's a lot to discuss here. It's gonna be the meat.
Buckle up.
This is our fan corner check-in, right? We're gonna do this every single week. We're gonna check in on what it's like being a Jets fan in the moment, or like being a Raiders fan in the moment, and maybe we'll have some guests on some other teams who are going through it, and we can hear about them. Um, do you want to go first on this one, or should I?
I'll let you take the wheel.
All right. Hey, look, Jets fans, we somehow found a way to. I mean, we may have won, but we found a way to lose the bye week. We were off this week,
Impressive
right?
feat.
And I think our whole team was looking forward to getting rested. We just coming off our first win of the season, right? Morale's high, right? As high as it can be for a 1-17. We just had an
Nice.
awesome comeback versus the Bengals. We're resting, we're getting ready. And what's a great way to ruin morale? Trade your best player. Um,
Ooh. What
which
if you doubled up on that?
Yeah, what if you traded away your two best players on one side
It
of the
has to
ball?
be doubly beneficial for your morale, right?
Yeah, right. Especially Q, who I don't know if this is true, but he has to be one of the longest tenured Jets, right? He's Pro Bowler, face of the franchise, really fun guy. Everyone loves him. No one dislikes Quinn Williams.
This is my opportunity to
And
kick while someone's down, and I'm not going to do it. I just want to put that out there. But
and
longest tenure Jet, that is a long suffering human.
I think it's only been like 6 years. It's just no one
A
lasts
long
long on the
time. That's
Jets.
hyperbolically like a 15-year career
I,
anywhere
I
else.
I feel like every other team has a player that's been there for like 9, 10, 11 years. And for us
Austin
it's
Eckler on the Chargers. felt like an eternity, and it must have like felt like an eternity of mediocrity for him too.
Yeah. And then as soon as he leaves for Washington, the Chargers are now like one of the best teams in the league. But no, look, I know we got great value. I know we got three first round picks and the second round pick. We got
I don't trust
AD
your
Mitchell.
drafting abilities.
Well, that's the thing is like even if these draft picks turn out great, like oh my gosh, this first round pick could be so good. You know, it could almost be like Sauce Gardner good.
Ooh,
And it's like, well, then why
I
don't
was
we trade
thinking
him in
very
the first place?
similarly. Yep.
Like it's we just extended him. We just gave this man over $30 million a year.
4 years
4 years, 120
for a
million,
corner.
highest corner ever.
It's a beautiful deal, and it's a beautiful player. You know,
And then we trade him what, 3 months afterwards? What current player is going to want to sign an extension with the Jets?
which current player was going to sign with the Jets previous to this?
I mean, I'm sure Alan Lazar would have taken a contract, but but like,
Shout out to Tyler Lockett.
dude, I would love Tyler Lockett on my team, man. Where does he represent Tyler Lockett? If you're watching the video, I got his jersey hanging up always. But no, I just look, I know we got good value, but it's demoralizing that we finally get a draft pick right. He's arguably maybe not the best corner in the league, but top five for sure, maybe top three. Um,
He's up there. I,
eh,
I, I honestly hate the Certain overhyping, but he's a great player.
now
But
that's your
I
bias, man.
really think
Sertain is easily the best
I think
corner in the league.
Certain. No. So I think there's an argument to be made there. I think Sauce he has his. It's kind of like when Richard Sherman was in the league. You also had your Josh Norman, and then you had a couple other corners in that time period. Intro Roll, let's say Akib Talib. Like they're all great and masters of the technique, and I think Surtain definitely has a lot more of that hybrid player, but he's not a real corner necessarily. I think he's more of that D'Angelo Hall safety corner. He can his greatness is in that he can play anywhere in the secondary. But I think viewing him as a corner is kind of detracting from the greatness of some of these other corners that literally play the position maybe in a more traditional sense, like Sauce. Sauce is an island, like
Well,
Reedus,
I mean,
I would say.
that's kind of like Sertan. I think is kind of great because he's a menace in zone coverage though. Like
But
Sauce
if
isn't
you're
a
making
menace
that
in zone.
comparison, I think a much better comparison is comparing him to players of his ilk, like a Derwin James or a Anton Winfield, or even maybe some another
Yeah,
nickel
yeah,
who's
but
very
but
hyper
but
aggressive, like Ramsey.
but you're just identifying safeties who are good at zone. Sertan is a corner that is really
Ramsey's a corner.
Ramsey. Okay, yeah. Sertan's a corner that can play man and zone top five in the league.
And I
Maybe not
mentioned
number one in
D'Angelo Hall
either.
as I feel like the precursor to that. You know,
Yeah, yeah, he was.
there's been players in the past, even Pac-Man, you know, uh,
Yeah,
a lot
Pac.
of those players who have that ability. But again, it's hard, but especially when comparing DBs, I think it's more important to like compare players with exact skill sets because
Yeah.
Sauce is one of the top five corners in the league, and perhaps if he is the top one corner, I think you do look at that deal a little bit differently. I think you definitely did get great value, but that's the only reason why I'm even bringing that up. I think perhaps the Jets are happy with the deal, and like you mentioned, I don't know what necessarily happens with the draft capital and what decisions get made and what that ends up looking like. And the thing about that too is this decision to also trade Q is that's the two best players you probably drafted in the past 5 years under the previous regime. Those are the best
Except for Garrett
players Joe
Wilson.
Douglas was going to get.
Except for Garrett
Well,
Wilson, my guy right here.
jury's still out
Dubs.
on Garrett Wilson for me, not
What?
because of Garrett Wilson, not because of Garrett Wilson, because of his QB situation. I don't know if he's ever going to be productive on the Jets. You know, I don't. I obviously don't doubt that he's going to be a productive NFL player if he gets an opportunity somewhere else. But I don't know if it's ever going to work out as long as he's in New York.
That's an absurd thing to say. I mean, how dare you? Number one. Number two.
Ohio State receivers seemingly have a hard go of it when they get into a bad situation on a bad team and they're hyper productive players. Shout out to Marvin Harrison, who had a great week this week, but it seemingly is something like Smith and Jigba, Sam Darnold, that connection. Like when they get their quarterback, when they get the guy who's going to be able to actually make use of their playmaking abilities, they're unstoppable forces. But they also seemingly can be stopped by bad quarterback play. They're not quarterback proof like the LSU receivers. but that's an argument for a different day.
Hey, either way, Jets. We're playing the Browns this week, and I think we're gonna get steamrolled. I think we're gonna let the Cleveland Browns score. How much did they score against Miami? Was it 30?
Around there, maybe. I don't know. Miami started giving up points at the end of that game, and I think everybody turned it off.
Whatever it
Turned it off
was,
going
I
on.
will put money that the Browns score more against us this week than they did against the Dolphins, which is saying a lot because the Browns offense sucks.
High
Uh,
five on it.
yeah. Okay. But yeah, I'm sad. We usually got good
Mediocre.
value, but it sucks to see. And I think it's the locker room's going to be on. I think trying to extend anyone, if there was any hope, is out the window. I'm glad we got Garrett Wilson done already because if we hadn't after the trade, he wasn't going to resign. There's just no way.
Do you still
But
think he's going to resign after this?
I mean,
Without getting TV input and other
he's
things.
he's already stuck with us for what, 4 years now? I think it was. So after that, I mean, who knows? I mean, after that, he'll probably be at the end of his prime, right? So
On maybe a perhaps Keenan Allen run.
yeah, he'll go to the Bears for a year and come back to the Jets and
Hey,
be
I think the most
insane.
interesting I heard in the analysis of the Jets this week, though, was that there are players that obviously Aaron Glenn, we even whether it's the media, insiders, or people within the team didn't know weren't going to be a part of the future. But there are players on the team that weren't going to be a part of the future. And I think it's actually good that they got out of there now and they found out about that now, as opposed to having like a tentative or a tumultuous relationship for the next 1.5 year or so, and then
Yeah, but Sauce Gardner was supposed
getting
to be a
off the
part of the
team.
future. We just signed him to a massive extension, but I
Similar to
digress.
Wilson,
I digress.
but yeah,
Let's hear about the
tough,
Raiders. Let's
tough.
stop. I want to get out of
The
this depression.
Raiders, the
What
Raiders.
happened? What
You want
happened
to get
this
out of
week,
this
man?
depression? I suggest we not talk about the Raiders.
What
What
happened?
happened this past week was a classic Raiders performance. Where's my phone? See, like this is what happens when we talk about the Raiders. I get a little out of sorts, and I have no idea what's going on because it's very disorienting to watch a Raider game. The emotions, the rush of feelings that you have, positive and negative, you know. But I'll take the listeners, watchers, viewers on a little bit of a journey. Um, I said, "Oof, that fungal wasn't in the bingo card." It was also a great question. Definition of asking for a friend. All this is in regards to the fact that I just don't understand where the turnover is going to come in the fourth quarter. But I knew that it was around the corner. I thought it was going to be a Geno interception, and it turns out it was a fumble. Right, that's not something you can just generally forecast. But also, it just as a Raider fan, I feel like I'm used to being disappointed, but I'm unsure of how it's going to happen. And the thing that was really surprising this week was that it was the interior of the defensive line instead of the secondary, which has been disappointing for years, despite having some promising young players. Shout out to Amik Robinson. Shout out to Jack Jones. Shout out to every player. We've mentioned this before in the past who's left the Raiders and gone on to a second team and had success. And I've had to watch a broadcast to find out that you're on that team. There's an Eagles corner. I don't know the name of right now, but he's having some success, and he was a former Raiders first round pick or a second round pick, something like that. So it's tough to watch the team fall apart in this week. And Max Crosby's post was also something that both brought me joy and also a certain amount of discontent. You know, and I was like, man, if he's one of the most positive people in the league, one of the hardest workers, and he's feeling like I don't know why I'm going to work every day.
Yeah,
I question what the spirit the spirit of the locker room is, the
just to
morale.
kind of pull up what you're referencing. Max Crosby sent out
Visual
a
reference.
tweet right after the game. I think it was, yeah, same day. Raiders Nation, I love y'all with everything in my heart and soul. Y'all deserve better. Stay as one. It will change. And then he sent like I think that's an emoji of an eagle at the end of the tweet.
Condor.
Uh, and then a black heart. Don't necessarily understand the eagle reference,
It's a condor.
but but either way, if your franchise player is tweeting out, y'all deserve better. You just know it's the state of the
Not much to say
franchise.
about that. You know, a couple of
Yeah.
weeks ago,
And
I think what's his name from Tennessee right now? I forget his name.
uh,
Uh,
s- speak up a bit.
from Tennessee a couple weeks ago.
He had the press conference where he was talking about how he feels about his team, and it was just bad. And I think when you hear your franchise quarterback or a player on your team talking about your team and the spirit of the team and we're bad is all they have to offer. I wish we could do better. We need to do better. That's not a great place to be.
Mm. I
Um,
think that was another Miami fellow alum, Cam Ward, saying that.
Cam Ward, yes. I don't know why
Yeah.
I couldn't remember Cam Ward's name,
But
but
not to mention, I mean, but even with all those struggles, the Raiders still had a chance in that 2-point conversion attempt to win it, which I still think was the right call. Like, I think you got to go for two in that scenario. Overtime, you have a chance to win or lose on one play.
Carson, follow me on the journey though. Okay,
All right, I'm with it.
let's walk for a second. Um, you're a Raiders fan. You're watching this game. You have no hope of winning this game. Suddenly, after a Geno Smith fumble, there's a glimmer of hope. You're like, man, maybe we can win this game. Then you start looking at the scores in the fourth quarter, and you're like, man, the Chiefs, they're down right now. That's crazy. The Chargers, wow, they kind of screwed up the past couple games. And Denver is an 18-15 game right now. I'm looking at a record. If we win this game, we'll be 3-5, and we're not that far back in our division. This year might not be lost, and Pete Carroll might be able to do what he's done years previously with the Seahawks, and ended up rallying this team to be a not playoff team, but at least competitive team for the rest of the year, which is exactly what I hoped for at the beginning of the season. All of this is going through my mind at the end of this game, and then finally we get down to the end of this game, and Pete Carroll has a goal line decision to make. You're gonna put me through that? Like, I
I
mean,
didn't
this
think of
stuff
it like
writes
that,
itself.
but
It said to take you on a journey. It was a trip this week, and it was definitely a difficult
but
expedition.
like, but like the play call was good. Tyler Lockett
I have
was
no
wide
issue with
open.
it. I have no
It's
issue with it.
just pass got deflected at the line. I think it's like I think it's the Raiders O line looked like shit the whole game. They were pretty abysmal. Your star receiver,
All year.
Jacoby Myers, was non-existent in the
Mm.
game. And then,
Well, now we know why.
yeah, because he
He
was
was
double
checking out
dealing.
property in Florida.
I was say that's crazy. You lose to a team in overtime, and then 2 days later, you send your best receiver to that team.
We talked about this, or we said we were going to talk about this in the beginning of the show, but the trade deadline, the amount of trades, the intensity, it felt like I was watching the NBA trade deadline. And also the teams that I was noticing are definitely teams that have had recent games and owners and players who perhaps had some conversations like you see in the NBA with the hey man, what's going on over here? Y'all got a spot? You got a 12th man? Okay, I can be your 12th man. After the game, see Steph Curry and whoever else talking, and that's usually what happens in the MC, in the off season. And they talk about collusion a lot in NBA, and I think that's perhaps what's going on here in some of these situations because it's
With
crazy
Jacoby,
to
yeah.
see. And then also even in the same way with the Colts trade, I was very surprised by it, especially in the AFC too. Like that's not something that you see all the time. It's not like it's something you're going to see every year. But the AFC South is somebody that you could see in the playoffs if you do have some success. If you are the Jets,
Well, yeah, but
obviously maybe they don't think they're going to be a contender in this year or maybe next year
so
too.
that
But
if is holding a lot of weight
that's the
there.
chance you're taking. If you
If they
do
have
actually
success.
have success with these first round picks, you've now screwed yourself over by adding to the divisional threats in proximity.
Nah, but I mean, nah, it's the Colts. I mean, they're gonna Daniel Jones isn't gonna be good every year. It's just no way. I'm not
It's
worried
the
about it.
Colts. Much like the NFC South, I worry every year about what's coming out of the South Division because I don't know from a week to week standpoint if they're going to be challenged by any of their divisional opponents, and it just means free wins for these teams that don't have to suffer like we do. As an AFC East fan and an AFC West fan, you understand like what it's like to watch your division be harder on itself than it is on anybody else.
True. I mean, granted, this year it's kind of the Patriots are getting a free pass because
What's that
so are the
about?
Bills.
What's that about?
I mean, they get 4 free wins a year between us and Miami. It's you can't really do
As a
much with
Raiders
that.
fan, I'm familiar with a team thinking that they're also going to get a free win every year and us splitting the games inexplicably and then dropping a game to the Jaguars.
Hey,
Hey, but we beat the Chiefs on Christmas almost every
yeah,
year,
that is true. It does feel like it's at least close against the Chiefs every
once
single
every
year.
other year. I'm like, huh, there's always a Thursday night game against the Chiefs that we're like, yeah, we got this. And I know from opening snap, oh, Patrick Mahomes doesn't got it tonight. Not often
Yeah.
you can say that.
So just to kind of track where our teams are at right now, I have it pulled up. The Raiders right now, if they win their next game, they have a less than 1% chance to make the playoffs. The Jets,
Okay.
if they win their next game, they have a less than 1% chance to make the playoff. And let me pull up the current draft order. Season ended today. The Jets would have the third overall pick, and the Raiders would have the seventh overall pick. So once again, we find ourselves in the bottom seven, the bottom, what,
Yes.
28% of the league.
What an excellent place to be year after year with no with no hope for the future.
Yep.
That's why
But
we have this show, though. To share our hopes and maybe to still dream.
oh, we're gonna be dreaming next week too. Make sure to join us. We will hopefully be dropping this.
Absolutely.
This will be released hopefully in the next 24 hours. So your Raiders actually should play either when this is released or they'll win or lose against, I think, Denver. They're playing tomorrow night, right?
If we beat the Broncos and we upload to YouTube this week, I would love if for some of the comments to mention how awesome it was that we beat the Broncos. I appreciate you guys in advance. You know,
Yeah. So
if we
we might.
don't talk about it. Please don't mention
Yep.
it.
We are recording this on Wednesday. You should see it up any day this week. If you guys have your own fan corner rants, check-ins, if you guys want to get it off your chest, if you're a Titans fan out there, I know
Talk
you
to
guys
us.
have it rough. Send us
Check
an
in.
email, bottomfeederspod@gmail.com.
We're here for you.
Um,
You're at the bottom.
but yeah, this has been episode I guess 2.5, if you want to call it. First episode on YouTube. Hopefully.
Hey.
So if you're watching us,
Yeah.
leave a comment, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. We're gonna have videos up every single week. Again, this is Carson with Bottom Feeders and Malcolm. Malcolm, any last words for the people?
Peace. See y'all next week.
See y'all next week. Thank
Go
you guys.
Raiders.